morning, everyone, and it's great to see so many people in the room. As Fergus said, I'm Jillian van Turnhout, Chief Executive of the Children's Rights Alliance, and I'm delighted to be joined here today by my colleagues from Barnardo's, Carey, Dublin Rape Crisis Centre, Irish Association of Young People in Care, ISPCC, 1 in 4, and Rape Crisis Network Ireland. I'm going to highlight some of the findings of Saving Childhood Crime report that we're launching here today. My focus will be on children growing up in Ireland now. Ellen O'Malley Dunlop will then focus on commitments made to adult victims of childhood institutional abuse. Today marks the first anniversary since the publication of the Ryan Report. 2 months after its publication in July 2009, the Minister for Children and Youth Affairs, Barry Andrews, published the Ryan Report Implementation Plan. This plan took the 20 recommendations of the Ryan Report and translated them into 99 specific actions with clear lines of departmental responsibility and agreed timelines running up to December 2011. And importantly, it pledged a budget of €25 million, with just over 14 million committed in budget 2010. The document we launch here today explores 10 key issues contained in the recommendations of the Ryan Report and its implementation plan. As a group, we have worked to draw from our direct experiences and have contacted the various statutory agencies responsible to ensure an accurate reflection of the current state of play. I should note, though, in some circumstances, it has been difficult to get clear answers from those in the driving seat. Today, and I should give you maybe a backdrop. We're disappointed that the monitoring of the plan is by statutory agencies only. No non-governmental or independent voice is present. Is this not how we failed in the past? We need transparency and accountability when it comes to child protection in Ireland. Today, I am glad to say that there has been some progress on the commitments made, but I would like to highlight that there is still a long way to go. On a political level, Ryan taught us that our work with children needs to be guided by child-centred principles. The National Children's Strategy has underpinned the development of policy and services for children over the past 10 years. This strategy ends in December of this year. It is critical that this strategy is evaluated so that we can learn from its operation during that period and inform the development of the next strategy. Furthermore, the views of key stakeholders, including children themselves and non-governmental organisations, are fundamental to the development of a new strategy. With just 7 months to go, no plan is evident, the clock is ticking for government, we're ready and willing to play our part. We believe that to ensure our childcare services are child-centred, they must be inspected against national standards. Shockingly, this is not the case. We're awaiting the commencement orders on the Health Act 2007, which will allow the Health Information and Quality Authority, HIQA, to expand its remit. Care settings which are currently not registered and inspected include residential sectors for children with disabilities, supported lodgings, hostels for separated children, and homeless children. On the legislative front, Ryan taught us that we need to have strong safety checks in place. Progress is urgently needed on 2 pieces of legislation. Firstly, the Children First Guidelines for the protection and welfare of children must be placed on a statutory footing. We must do this to ensure that no child who is at risk of being left in an abusive situation is left there. The guidelines are not consistently implemented across the country, and I think the report from the Ombudsman for Children last week gave us further evidence of it's not been implemented. The implementation plan promises us that they'll publish a draft bill by December 2010. We've seen no evidence of any work on this. Secondly, we're awaiting the publication of the National Vetting Bureau Bill. This will allow for a comprehensive vetting system of those working with children, including the use of soft information. Such legislation was recommended by the Joint Committee on the Constitutional Amendment on Children in September 2008. A commitment was given to publish this bill by December of the same year. In January 2009, following the publication of the Cloyne report, the Minister, at a press conference, promised to publish the heads of bill within 6 months. Another year passes, and we still wait for the bill to be published. Ryan also taught us about the need for aftercare support for those leaving care. The Oireachtas currently has an opportunity to make a real difference to the provision of aftercare through the Childcare Amendment Bill 2009, which is currently being debated. An amendment should be made to ensure that each child leaving care who is in need of aftercare support has a legal entitlement to it. At present, this is discretionary in law. Most children relish the coming of their 18th birthday and the freedom that it brings them. However, for many children in care, this is the birthday they dread the most. On the practice front, Ryan taught us that childhood is precious and that a damaged childhood brings a lifetime of hurt and struggle. We have a duty to protect children. So how is our system operating for children in care and who are in need of protection today? Every child in care is entitled to a social worker and a care plan, but in practice, many children have neither. The HSE Service Plan 2010 commits to recruiting an additional 200 social workers for child protection services, 50 by the end of the second quarter of this year, a further 75 by the end of the third quarter, and the final 75 in the fourth quarter. We're not aware of any new posts being filled yet. Without these posts, the system will continue to fail many of the 5,700 children in its care. Children will continue to slip through the net unless we fix our child protection and care systems. And we urgently need to address the following. We have no national out-of-hours social work service. This potentially puts children's well-being and indeed their lives at risk. Progress on the piloting of an out-of-hours service is unclear. For separated children in the care of the state, despite the introduction of an equity of care policy in late 2009, we're concerned that they're not getting the support they need in this transition. In particular, it's especially important that victims and suspected victims of trafficking are provided with safe accommodation and appropriate supports. The system for homeless children time and again fails to meet the needs of the child, and in many instances plays a role in things spiralling out of control. Children are provided with emergency accommodation under Section 5 of the Child Care Act 1991. It was envisaged as an emergency measure, but in practice, children remain in homeless hospitals for considerably longer periods of time. This is an wholly unacceptable care response for these extremely vulnerable children. A review of the use of Section 5 was due to take place by December 2009. It's not yet happened. Due to their tragic deaths, we've recently learned about the lives of some of those children who have used the homeless services. Tracy Fay, David Foley, Danny Talbot and Daniel Matanaski, who Fergus outlined their stories. Completion of a review of the homeless service is a relatively achievable and straightforward action, so there really is no excuse to why it's not happening. And last but certainly not least, a fundamental lesson from Ryan is that children were not valued and respected within society. To ensure this happens, we need constitutional change. In 2006, the then Taoiseach committed to holding a referendum on children's rights. In 2007, all parties committed in their election manifestos to a children's rights referendum. In 2008, the Joint Committee on the Constitutional Amendment on Children commenced its work. In 2009, the Ryan Report brutally exposed what happens when children's rights are ignored. In 2010, the Joint Committee achieved all-party consensus on wording. Last night, the government narrowly voted down a motion to set a date for a referendum. A referendum is needed to remove constitutional roadblocks to children's rights. A referendum is needed to ensure that the fundamental law of our land reflects the values that we hold as a nation, that children must be listened to, protected and cherished. We ask the government to act as a matter of urgency on the growing consensus on the need for a referendum. As a nation, we've closed our eyes to the injustices against the children who we should be cherishing. It is time for us to fight for childhood together. We all know what needs to be done to remedy the gaps in our child protection and care systems. Failure on the part of the state continues to damage childhoods that will leave a legacy of hurt and struggle well into adulthood. Important promises have been made to remedy these gaps, and the government and the arms of the state now have a non-negotiable duty to live up to these promises. Children of Ireland deserve better. It's time that we as a society demanded better. Thank you.